Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 173, featuring the top 5 Miles O'Brien episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are returning to our character series for the first time in like 20 episodes. This is our 18th overall character deep dive on TrekRanks, and tonight we are discussing the most important man in Starfleet history. It's the great Chief Miles Edward O'Brien, engineer, soldier, transporter chief, husband to Keiko, father to Molly and Kiriyoshi, and some alternate timeline kids as well. And friend of Julian Bashir, who he really does not hate you anymore. He's a failed Syrah, makes a pretty bad Klingon. It's the kayaking fiend, the dart throwing and cello playing master, builder of ships and bottles, which are great fun. And finally, of course, the hero of Setlik 3, it's Miles Edward O'Brien. We have got a lot of ground to cover with Miles O'Brien. This is going to be a cool one. So grab your interphasic coil spanner and ODN recoupler and heat up your Jamaican blend double strong, double sweet. And let's introduce our guest for tonight's show. First up, returning for his 7th overall appearance, coming to us from the USS NC North Carolina, Mr. ATOS himself. It's Chris Burris. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks, Jim. It's good to be back and great to be talking about the most important man in Star Trek. So looking forward to this episode.
He is that indeed. And making his first ever appearance on TrekRanks, having responded to our TrekRanks survey probe earlier this year, hailing us from the Chicago sector, where he has managed to procure a graviton stabilizer for us to use all night. It's William Overton. Welcome, William.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be here. I'm really excited. Love the show, and I'm just delighted to be on and talk with you and Chris about Miles O'Brien tonight.
I love this. Okay, let's get your quick Trek origin story, William. What's your backstory? How long you been watching? When did you get into it? Have you seen it all? What's your favorite? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I don't remember a time where Star Trek wasn't in my life.
Right.
So when I was I grew up in the 90s, so Next Gen, DS9, and Voyager were on. My parents we have this like family, this home video from when I was like under 6 months old of my dad like bouncing me on his knee in front of the TV, and the commercial break-ins, and it's Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it's just like it's always been there. It's like always been a part of my life and like my identity and the way that I view the world. And it's been like an important way for me to connect with people I care about. My parents, my brother. My wife now, she started watching when we started dating, and now it's something that we get to like share and enjoy, the new Star Trek as it's coming out together, which is just really, really fun and really, really special. I'm not a full completist, which I feel a little sad saying on this podcast.
This means you have more Star Trek to watch.
It means I have more Star Trek to watch. Yeah. I think I'm missing probably about a quarter of Voyager. I caught it on like Spike TV in the aughts and like recorded a bunch, but missed some and just like haven't gotten around to doing a full watch. And then this one, this just shows when I was born, but I've probably only seen like 20 episodes of the original series.
Yep.
And when I think of Kirk, I think of like Kirk in the Monster Maroon, not Kirk in the yellow shirt on the Enterprise. So
I love that. It's just it's so great. There's so many different ways to
love the franchise.
Yeah, right. To love the franchise. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what would you call your favorite?
DS9, certainly. So this topic is great, followed by TNG, which makes this topic even more great.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, fantastic. I love this. It's going to be a great show. Let's get started now with our TrekRanks recalibration.
You can recalibrate the regulators now.
Will do.
That was Miles O'Brien right there. Actually, it was Smiley. Okay, the TrekRanks Charter has 2 clauses. We rank Trek so we can have a fun conversation about Star Trek, and 2, the ranks don't matter. We just use them as the framework to have a deep dive conversation about all the things we love about Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity, but a celebration of differences.
Because as DePaul and Dr. Phlox just said, Trek Ranks is just a celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at Trek Ranks. This show is about all the things we love about Trek, and we love it all from TOS to TNG, straight through the Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the Trek Ranks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
Now, we don't really need a black alert tonight, but this episode of Trek Ranks is current through the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks and 903 overall episodes of Star Trek across the past 57 years. And one final reminder, oh no, we don't need the films. Sadly, we've never seen Miles O'Brien in a film.
Hailing frequencies open.
Thank you, Mr. Worf. You can hail me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise NXtra, and on Blue Sky at TrekRanks. And you can see our extensive rankings of all the treks at TrekRanks.com. And don't forget to also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, so to wrap it up, Chris and William, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Chris.
You can find me on Twitter at Burris CJ, and you can also find me on Blue Sky, also at Burris CJ, and on Threads at Burris CJ06. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Beautiful. William, how about you?
As of right now, I'm still only on Twitter. Maybe that'll change one day, but I'm at William Overton. You can find me there.
Okay, we're going to have Miles run a diagnostic cycle right now so we can get into this topic.
I can't guarantee any of this will work without running a series of diagnostics.
Okay, really quick. We like to begin our character shows with 3 quick updates. First, a reminder that we call this show Top 5 Episodes, but you can pick anything you want. You can pick like massive Miles O'Brien episodes or just small moments in an episode where maybe Miles hardly appears, but there's a cool moment you want to highlight. So we just use episodes as the shorthand there, but it can be a mix of episodes and moments. Second, this is our 18th overall character that we've tackled on Trek Ranks, so it's time for our character show roll call. You've heard me do it many times. You're sick of it, but I don't care. So here we go. Go back and check out these old character episodes. We started with episode NX00. Captain James T. Kirk was our first ever episode. Then we've done Data, Cisco, Kira, Neelix, T'Pol, Nog, Picard. We did Icheb, yep. Odo, Janeway, Crusher, both of them. Dax, all of them. Q, all of them. Spock, Uhura, Worf, and now Chief Miles Edward O'Brien.
Human. Gold uniform indicates a specialty in security or engineering. Rank, Chief Petty Officer. You are what Starfleet refers to as a non-com.
That's right.
You must have a great deal of experience.
I've been around.
That makes you a priority target. We will kill you first.
Okay, and third, for our character shows, we like to ask each of our guests for one word that they think of when they think of Miles O'Brien. So we're going to do that now, but first, it took me 18 episodes to figure this out. I'm going to move this into our prime directives because it always ends up relating to someone's prime directive. So we're going to jump to our prime directives right now.
Do they know about prime directive? They know everything I know, sir.
And you're about to know everything we know about our prime directive. So Chris, let's start with you. First, give us your one word to describe O'Brien, and then tell us a little bit about your prime directive and how you kind of ended up narrowing down your list.
Okay, so the one word for O'Brien is exceptional. Ooh. And I arrived at that word for 2 reasons. One is that he may be an enlisted individual, but he has quite a skill set.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Behind his repertoire. And he's basically done it all from soldier to technician, like you were alluding to during your introduction, Jim. Yeah. So, I mean, he just does it all. And to not be an officer, you would think that he had that capability. He could have been an officer if he wanted to, but he didn't. And we know him for the person we love and honor today. So that's how I arrived at that word. And along those lines, I did try to find some exceptional, in my opinion, of course, episodes for where Miles really shined and excelled.
Yeah, that's a tough prime directive because he's exceptional in all of them. So
yeah.
I love it. Okay, perfect. William, how about you? What's your one word, and how did you break it all down?
Hard to beat exceptional, Chris.
Yeah,
That's
so good.
it's so good. It's so true with Miles O'Brien. I thought about saying Union Man, but instead I'm gonna go with Everyman.
Yes.
Which I mean, it's O'Brien in a nutshell, right? He's our like window character for DS9. He's the guy who you can relate to him. He has real friendships. He has a marriage. He has children. He can do so many things. He's the guy who folks go to. And I mean, I think the producers have described him before as an everyman and as the everyman for that show. So, it felt like it hit.
Yeah, I thought of that one too, Everyman, because he's like that. He's the most unique character in Star Trek history, really, when you really break down kind of his background and everything he does and the way he approaches it. So I'm assuming that played into your picks.
Yes, it did. For each pick, I really tried to focus on a different facet of his character. And so I'll talk about that kind of with each pick and kind of what I was going for. Hopefully they work well enough, but really want to make sure that we get to look at O'Brien from lots of different angles along the way, because he has all these sides to him.
I love that. So I did something similar, but basically the opposite, because I tried to break down his different character set, or just the different angles of him, and make separate picks. But what I ended up doing was I thought of him in basically three categories. That's really a broad way to kind of define him. And what I ended up doing with my picks instead was making sure all of my picks, you saw all three of those things in the episode, which I'll talk about right now. So for me, my word was, by the way, I'm going to start by saying this. One of the most in-depth characters ever. So Miles O'Brien, here's some statistics for you. 212 overall appearances in Star Trek. So everyone knows that Worf is number one now, or has been for a while, at 283 after Picard season 3. Interestingly, O'Brien is number 2. He's at 212, but it depends how you count it, because he's followed closely by Picard, who is at 211, just one behind him. But I'm going to give you some real detail here. That 212 includes a voiceover only appearance where you just hear his voice in The Price. And I'm not including his holographic appearance at the end of Temporal Edict in Lower Decks. So 212. Picard, however, 211, I'm not including his voiceover at the end of These Are the Voyages, because that's a little different, right? That was just kind of tagged on. And I'm not including his photo appearing in Children of Mars. So depending on how you count it, O'Brien and Picard are right there behind Worf at 212, 211. Okay, enough of that. So my word that I chose was pragmatic. So, and I thought about both of those angles. I thought about Everyman. I thought about something along the lines of exceptional. I just really like that he's a realist, a decision maker based on just real world consequences. He's not someone making decisions based on ideals or philosophies or principles, and just a guy who kind of processes the information in front of him, makes the best decision that he sees based on the options. And it's that kind of decision making process that really touches every corner of his personality makeup. So here's how I broke down his personality. 3 categories, kind of his work, engineer, tinkerer, his soldier kind of background, soldier, spy, and then his friendships, his family and friendships. So when I went to my episodes, I wanted to make sure all 3 of those things were showcased in each episode. So I had to eliminate a couple where it really didn't hit on that as much. And then I also chose episodes, not moments. And I didn't choose any alternate timeline stuff. And I decided not to pick any O'Brien Must Suffer episodes. That's interesting. That's a joke. That's impossible. So that would be impossible to do. You have to pick O'Brien Must Suffer episodes. There's no way you can do this show without doing it. Okay, enough of that. I'm rambling.
I'm so excited to see which combination of O'Brien must suffer episodes we end up getting tonight.
This is going to be great. We know we're going to have a lot of duplicates tonight, but I'm sure there'll be some really cool outliers as well. So, all right, let's do it. Third Ramadaclon, introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Ramadaclon. As always, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our top 5 Miles O'Brien episode and the reasons we're highlighting it. And after getting through 5 rounds of picks, we'll dive into some secondary system selections from everyone. And remember, if you have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Maybe fired by Miles O'Brien himself. Okay, Chris, I'm going to start with you. What is your number 5 pick for your top 5 Miles O'Brien episodes?
Okay, my 5 words for this one. The word suffer is in this, but it's phrased like this. And it is someone wants O'Brien to suffer. And the hashtag is what we do for love. And my pick is The Assignment from DS9.
Wow. That is a deep cut. I love it.
So going back to what we've said about O'Brien's character and his relationships, this was one episode that showed what he would do for love. And he basically risked everything to save Keiko from her fate, even though he didn't know exactly what was happening with her right away.
Yep.
And this was an episode where he also wears his emotion on his rolled up sleeves, a little character trait right there. And there was just several moments where he really let his emotions be on full display, like when he broke the glass when Keiko, quote unquote, was having a moment with Molly. He just couldn't stand it and he hurt himself because of it. And I think, if I remember correctly, that was during his birthday party. And he couldn't say to anyone what was happening, but it was obvious something was up. And he used his wits to gain the upper hand against the power wraith, as he found out later at the last moment, and ended up destroying the power wraith while saving Keiko's life, which was just fantastic. And the person that really set him on this path of what was happening was Rom, which was almost completely out of left field, that Rom would have that much insight to say, why are we trying to kill the wormhole aliens? And then just watching Miles put the pieces together was just fantastic. And he's like, oh, this is what's going on. And having to leave Rom in stir while he basically ran down the last phase of his assignment while trying to save Keiko was just something to watch. And it was just a brilliant moment. And this was one episode where I had thought about another episode that was going to be in my number 5, but I moved this one up because I realized that, oh yes, there was that one moment. So that's why this episode is now my number 5.
Yeah, this is classic. And it's just such a well-structured episode. There's so much jeopardy and you feel like there's just no way out. And the resolution is so great with Rom being right at the middle of it. I love The Assignment. This is awesome, awesome pick. I actually didn't think of this one. It didn't really get on my list somehow. William, how about you?
Yeah, no, this is not on my secondary systems. This is a great pick. And I love this for like O'Brien as like a husband, as a family man. Like you can really empathize for him because you can see his pain. You can see what he's feeling. Like he wants to do what he needs to do for his wife. No, this is a wonderful pick. I love it.
Yeah, this is definitely one that checks my 3 boxes of family friend, soldier spy, engineer, tinkerer. He does it all. Okay, William, what's your number 5 pick?
So my number 5 pick, my 5 words are smells like a garbage dump and hashtag wish you were more like a man. And this is DS9 season 4, episode 4, Hippocratic Oath.
Yes. And
for me, I was thinking a lot about which episode I wanted to showcase his friendship with Bashir, because I think this is at the crux of why this is a good O'Brien episode. And there's so many classic examples of that. I'm sure we'll talk about more of them later today. But I think for this, it's, he and Bashir have this massive disagreement over how to proceed and how to handle this. And they start, Bashir starts to pull rank, and they're going back and forth. And I think we could certainly get into a debate about what the right course of action here was and everything. But to me, this shows, I think, the strength of their friendship, because they're both trying to do anything that they can do to help the other. Bashir first is like, yes, I'll help them because it's going to save Miles. And Miles is, doing what he thinks is the right thing to do to save him and to save his friend, Julian. And, at the end of it, they have this like nice moment on the runabout where, they're heading back to the station, and we have darts tonight. I don't really feel like it, but maybe in a few days. And, these characters are going to be okay because they've, this 4 seasons in, they've built up this friendship. They have this trust. And I think it shows how strong of a true friendship this is, and how relationships like that can survive a lot and can survive disagreement.
Yeah, this is the classic Bashir O'Brien road trip episode. So good. And the way that they're fighting for the same thing to get out of there, but they end up pitting each other against each other, where O'Brien's being pragmatic and Bashir's being an idealist. So I love this. And that scene you mentioned at the end is perfection. It's really one of those quiet, underrated moments. One of the moments that make DS9 Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, make it the show.
They take that extra little moment just to be like, yeah, they're not going to hang out tonight, but they're going to be fine. So
you can bring me up on charges, Well, that's not really my style. I wish things could have been different, Julian. So do I. And I'm sorry I had to destroy your work.
You didn't have to, Chief. You had a choice, and you chose to disobey orders. Override my judgment and condemn those men to death.
Yes, I did. Because I thought it was the only way to save your life. Whatever else you may think of who I am and what I did, at least try to understand that.
Tonight's supposed to be our weekly darts game.
Don't worry. I don't feel much like playing either.
Maybe in a few days.
I love this pick. I love Hippocratic Oath. Super underrated. Chris, what's your take?
This is a great pick, William, and I agree with every reason that you had said. This did not make my secondary systems or my primary list, but I found it's a great episode that really shows the friendship and how their friendship has evolved from those early seasons, where they could get to this point where they just decide, well, we're not hanging out tonight. We're just going to take a break, but we'll pick this up another time. It was just a very beautiful moment and a perfect character moment that really made DS9, as you just said, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, there's that moment where it just feels like, every time O'Brien's, he's just singularly focused, right, on getting out of there, escaping. And Bashir's like, no, but I think I can really help the Jem'Hadar here and save them, like a humanitarian kind of thing. And O'Brien is just like, what the f- are you even talking about, man? I mean, it is so great. That is classic O'Brien, just cutting through it. That is the pragmatist of him, just being like, you are nuts, man. We are getting out of here. I don't care if you write me up. Awesome episode. I love it. Okay, let's go to my round 5 pick. And this is crazy. I've never picked this episode before. I could not believe it when I looked it up. 5 words and a hashtag. Ram Scoop, Arva Nodes, piece of cake, hashtag Tinker, friend, soldier, spy. And this is Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 6, Captive Pursuit. Just a brilliant early Deep Space Nine episode. Again, you see all the angles of O'Brien here. So you see the engineer and the tinkerer, where he's working on Tosh's ship and trying to help him out there and figuring out kind of what his real story is. You see the soldier spy where he's helping him escape with some clever setups at the end and cutting through the politics of the thing and just getting him out of there. And you see the friendship, the family friend. He is a friend of Tosk. He is helping the guy out. He's connected with him, and I just love the way he connects with Tosk and treats him with so much respect. So all-time great episode of Trek with O'Brien just cutting through it all. And the ending is one of my favorites, where Sisko actually helps him in his own way, and Miles is like, you could have probably, I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's something along the lines of, you could have beamed us out, or you could have grabbed us. And Sisko's like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think of that. So I love it. Classic episode. Scott McDonald as Tosk. Chris, what's your take?
This was an episode where I went back and forth about, do I include this or not? And I was hoping that someone would include it on their list, because I just could not find a space for it. But I'm glad you did, Jim. This is one of O'Brien's classic episodes where he really shows off all of his skill set, and the fact that he was able to befriend this alien and do something to help him, even though he knew that there could be a high cost for his assistance. So great pick.
Yeah, love that. William, how about you?
Yeah, gosh, this is an awesome pick. I haven't seen this episode in a while, and it's a great, like, season 1 DS9. Chris, what you were just saying there about, like, him doing the right thing, I think this episode pairs really nicely with, like, Hippocratic Oath, right? It's O'Brien. He's got his morals. He's got his direction. He's got what he feels like he should do, what he feels like is right. And I think we see a lot of O'Brien's, like, empathy in this episode, right? His ability to connect with people, his ability to see different perspectives, which is something that I think is a through line for him in TNG and DS9. So I think this is a great pick, Jim.
Yeah, well said. This is where you really see the way he connects with people, and and I just love his friendship with Tosk. Great stuff. Okay, round 4. Let's do it. Chris, what's your number 4 pick?
For my round 4 pick, 5 words are not spared from temporal mechanics. The hashtag is flash forward, and my pick is DS9's Visionary.
Ooh, okay. Classic.
And I've leaned into this one because O'Brien experienced a very unique form of time travel where he just went forward in time for only a few hours, but he used that time to save himself, as well as at the end of the episode, saving the station. And it also goes a little bit more into his friendship with Bashir, because at the moment where he sees himself lying on the bed in the infirmary dead, and Bashir comes up to tell him, I did everything I could. And O'Brien's like, well, why didn't you do more? Why didn't you save me? It was just a great moment to see O'Brien just saying to Bashir, why didn't you help me? And it just shows that how the continuing evolution of their friendship has led them to this point where he relies on Bashir's expertise. And when he lets him down, even though he's dead, he's like, oh man, well, why? What happened? It's just a great moment. And even though O'Brien wasn't in the room at the end of the episode to finally save the station, he did relay the information to Sisko, who was able to take it to the Romulans and say, I have 50, I believe, photon torpedoes trained on this warbird, and I am going to blow it out of the sky if you all do not leave right now. So Sisko was able to act on the information immediately, and O'Brien is he may feel like he's doing his job, but again, he saved the station, and it was a great moment. And he also had one of the best ending lines for his character in this episode, where he just says to Quark, Dabo. And the Dabo happens, and Quark's running after him, and O'Brien's just laughing as he walks away. It was just a classic moment.
I love that moment with Bashir is so great, where he's like, why didn't you do more to save me? Because when he walks in, he sees his dead body there. This is a classic, just great sci-fi time travel tricky episode with so many fun elements. Again, so well structured. Just another classic DS9 playing with the formula episode. And of course, one of the best things about it is the twist ending where it's like that he's now a new O'Brien. It's the future O'Brien replacing the dead O'Brien. So one of those deals. So this is definitely going on the O'Brien must suffer list that I'm tracking right now.
For sure.
So William, what's your take?
Yeah, Chris, another awesome pick. And like you guys said, this episode really has it all. And it's one of those episodes that in DS9 just kind of hides, right? Like, because DS9 has such a deep bench of just great episodes.
Yeah.
I think for O'Brien, I mean, obviously a great suffering outing. And I think this shows, like you guys are saying, this shows so many different aspects of his character. It shows how adaptable he is to different situations. Like, he's traveling through time, through like short time jumps. Like, what the fact that he's able to save the day here, and this future him comes back and all this stuff. I think it shows how adaptable he is, how good he is at thinking on his feet, and getting done what needs to get done, being practical.
Perfect. And just an awesome episode. I'm pretty sure this is top 50 on my Trek Ranks list. Okay, William, what's your number 4 pick?
So my 5 words for my number 4 pick is, that's the most important thing. # family includes the cat. And this is Honor Among Thieves.
Chester!
Which is DS9 615. I love Honor Among Thieves. I think this is an underrated episode of DS9. I love the like spy noir kind of vibe that it's got.
Yeah.
I picked this episode as kind of I was originally thinking I was going to do this as like a duty episode for O'Brien, but it felt like more, I like what this said about his sense of honor and his him being a family man, where we've got this situation that's kind of, we're juxtaposed with these two men, O'Brien and Bilby, excuse me. We're juxtaposed between these two men who care deeply about their family, right? That, like Bilby says over and over again, that family is the most important thing, which is something that O'Brien definitely shows, in the show. But they've just taken such different paths to providing for their family and for being there for them. Interestingly, they've got some similarities where like they both have distance from their family in spaces, in places, because Bilby is off committing crime, and O'Brien at one point lets Keiko go and do her thing and be a botanist, and they have space. But it's all, in each case, they're kind of doing something. They're doing what they need to do for family. But O'Brien is taking this road as a Starfleet officer. Bilby is a member of the Orion Syndicate. They're both driven by this like North Star of, I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure my family's safe, to make sure that they have what they need. They just take these wildly different paths, but they share this really core value around the importance of family. And I just think that's a really interesting kind of thing to watch back and forth in this show, in this episode. And it stays true to the end, where, O'Brien is trying to protect Bilby because he cares about this man. He cares about this man's family. Bilby sacrifices himself for his family at the end. And then O'Brien, takes care of the cat, who looks a lot like my cat, Sammy. So I really appreciated that. I hope if something happens to me, someone takes care of Sammy.
I'm sorry, Bilby. You'll never know how little comfort that is. It is not too much trouble. Will you make sure Chester is looked after?
Chester is on my number 1 pick for our top 5 Star Trek Pets episode back like 100 episodes ago. So.
Be good.
I love it. This is such an awesome episode. One of my favorite rewatches. Just cannot get enough of it. Bilby is just such a great character. O'Brien is so powerful in this episode. I could rewatch this one a million times. Chris, what's your take?
Well, I need to do a rewatch of this episode because it's been a while since I've seen it, but it is a great episode for O'Brien. And one of the things that DS9 did really well was working in other genres of storytelling into its own storytelling. So bringing in aspects of noir and the cloak and dagger aspects of O'Brien and Bilby doing their work was a great moment for both characters, as well as showing again what O'Brien was willing to do for his family, just as Bilby did for his. And I have a cat too, so I really appreciated the cat being taken by O'Brien at the end.
It's so good, and I love that juxtaposition you talked about, William, with how they're both taking care of their families in different ways. I love episodes like this where someone like Bilby he's a bad dude, right? He murders somebody right in front of everybody, but man, you still find a way to connect and humanize him. Classic. I love it. Okay, let's go to my round 4 pick. I mean, okay, we're through 2 rounds, no duplicates yet. So this is crazy. I know we're gonna have duplicates though as we get into this. All right, my number 4 pick, 5 words in a hashtag. Pragmatist takes down Alexis's idealism. Hashtag Tinker, Escapist, Soldier, Spy. And this is Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 15, Paradise. Just another fantastic, underrated episode. And I just love O'Brien in this episode. This was actually one of my top 5 Cisco episodes because I love Cisco in this episode. And as I was thinking about O'Brien, this is O'Brien, the support guy. He's there doing all those things I talked about, right? He's the engineer, the tinkerer. He's working. He's figuring out there's the duonetic field, and it doesn't take him long to figure out that this is not naturally occurring. There is something screwy going on here with Alexis and her crew. And Soldier, Spy, right? So he helps them escape by overpowering Alexis's son and kind of tricking him with the old tree and the snare. And then the friendship, it's O'Brien caring about, there's one of the Alexis people there, Meg, is dying, and they know that their medical supplies are going to save her. So he's trying to figure out a way to contact the runabout. That's what gets him in trouble. Then Cisco goes in the box, and it ends up being O'Brien through connecting with Joseph, one of the farmers there working, and letting them know, like, hey man, I'll knock you out so it doesn't hurt you, but I'm getting out of here, and we're gonna, I'm gonna escape.
I need your help, Joseph.
With what?
There is nothing I can do, so please don't ask me.
I've got to try to track down where that duonetic field is coming from.
We told you there are astatine deposits.
That's not what's causing it. If it were, I'd have that transmitter running and we'd all be out of here already. It's got to be something else. And I think I figured a way to get me to the source of it.
And you want me to look the other way while you leave?
She'd put you in the box, wouldn't she? Then do me a favor. Look down at that hematite deposit I just discovered.
Miles.
I can do it so it won't hurt at all.
All those connections, just O'Brien, he's throughout this episode, he's a big part of the support and around, and I don't know, this is just another one of those episodes I love. Oh, and Doctrine sucks. It sucks bad. Chris, what's your take on Paradise from Deep Space Nine Season 2?
Great episode, and it really showcased, again, O'Brien's talents, but it also did a lot, like you said, to show that he is the supporting person, but he will take the lead in his own way.
Yep.
And how whereas overpowering the sun, figuring out what the dampening field was up to, and all of that was just O'Brien really excelling at what makes him perfect to be chief of operations for the station, and even off the station in this case.
Yeah, exactly right. He's supporting, but he's also making decisive moves and decisions throughout this episode. William, what's your take on Paradise?
It's a great episode. Another Deep Space Nine episode. I think it's interesting how I think kind of the way that O'Brien's acting here is sort of similar to how he acts in in Hippocratic Oath. He's being sneaky. He's being resourceful. He's doing what he thinks he needs to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I also just generally, I feel like these episodes kind of have a little bit similar vibes with the crash site being on a planet, etc. No, I think this is a great pick. I need to, this one I need to go back and rewatch. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I love it. It's worth a rewatch. Okay, let's go to round 3, the soup round. William, Chris, what do you got?
All that electromagnetic soup, it's wreaking havoc on our nervous system.
Okay, so I'm veering a little bit back into TNG. This is a little bit of a clue for this one. And 5 words are transporter chief for a reason. The hashtag is say it with music. And my pick is The Wounded from season 4. And
love it.
Minstrel boy to the war has gone.
In the ranks of death you will find him. His father's sword he hath girded on, and his wild heart slung behind him.
Sorry, I have to sing that right here. Go.
Yes, that's why I picked it, because when I was thinking about O'Brien episodes, the song, the Minstrel Boy just kept coming to mind. And who knew that O'Brien was actually a bit of a singer as well?
Oh, his voice is beautiful.
Unfaithful harp shall praise thee.
The song really captured the tone of the episode perfectly, but it also captured O'Brien's mood perfectly as well, because in addition to the action of this episode, we were also introduced to the Cardassians for the first time, which would have major repercussions down the road for both TNG and Deep Space Nine. And we were also introduced to O'Brien's feelings for them, and we had more character insight into O'Brien at that time, because we saw that he had scars from his previous encounters with Cardassians, because he had been involved in warfare with them. And he was a cheerful guy on the Enterprise, the same transport chief we knew and loved, but he carried the legacy of that war with him from Setlik 3, and we saw a little bit about how that changed his character and how his worldview had been shaped because of those encounters with the Cardassians. And it really drove the point home that there are even scars from those times of war that will not necessarily go away, and they may resurface in unexpected ways. When he was invited to have the drink with the Cardassian, and he just basically told him what was on his mind. And again, only O'Brien could do something like that. And to have a character you really had a sense of what he had been through during that conflict.
Yeah.
But going back to some of his more resourceful elements, and only outside of Scotty, he found a way to transport aboard the Phoenix and show up in Maxwell's ready room, confront him, and basically talk him down from the action that he was taking. And he was able to bond with Maxwell over the memories of a fallen comrade they both knew through the song The Minstrel Boy. And that forced Maxwell to understand that there was no way he was going to win. So it was best for everyone that he turns himself in to Picard for arrest. And O'Brien was able to help with that. And that was something that, given his background, he was the only person who could do it. And as an audience, we didn't know that that was something O'Brien could do, but we saw that for the very first time, and it was great.
Pour one out for poor old Stompy.
Yes.
Okay, listen, I love where you started with this. This happens all the time on my TrekRanks character episodes, because I'm such a Star Trek nerd. We start talking about the characters, and we forget to say what a great performance the actor has. So Cole Meany, we haven't even said his name yet. We're halfway through. Let's give the man his due props.
Snaps for him.
What a singer. And I think of this episode as, this is the one where it's like, yep, this guy can lead his own Star Trek show, basically. Let's move him to Deep Space Nine and make him a regular character, because look at everything that he just pulled off in this episode that you just kind of broke down, Chris, so well. So I love this moment. I love the way it portrays O'Brien and the way Cole Meany just kind of imbues this character with this gravitas that we need, that the showrunners and the writers are like, we need to see more of this guy. William, what's your take?
Yeah, this is an incredible pick, Chris. Everything you're saying about like Cole Meany, this is like him coming into his own. Like, I didn't realize until the other day that this comes directly after Data's Day. Mm-hmm. I thought there was more of a gap between the two, but you've got like Best of Both Worlds where he reads Geordi's lines, and then you've got Data's Day where we really start to see him and Keiko and their relationship, and then this episode, it's like, whoa, like this guy who's been manning the transporter, having some fun lines. He can really do it. I think this is a wonderful pick, and I love that speech from Picard at the end where he says, if Maxwell could not find a role for himself in peace, we can pity him, but we shall not dismiss him.
So good.
And like, what's really cool about that is, he and O'Brien went through the same thing, but like O'Brien, our everyman, our practical man, our jack of all trades, can find a role for himself in peace and war and in all these different scenarios, because he's an example of a character who can move through his feelings, and not just box them up, but he moves through them, as shown in that scene with the Cardassian, and find a role for himself and be able to live a healthy life. So awesome pick, Chris.
Perfect summary. Okay, William, what is your super round pick?
My super round pick, my 5 words are: the river will provide, Chief. Yes. # the great material continuum. And this is obviously DS9, season 7, episode 6, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River.
So good.
Which this is just such a fun. This is the O'Brien plot in this episode is really, really fun. I think it's a great episode overall. And I think O'Brien here is like, he's in his element as like, he's a master engineer. He is where the height of war, we see him like, he's the promenade is ripped apart. His captain shows up and is like, hey, I need this graviton stabilizer. And he's like, I can have it for you in 3 weeks. He's like, I need it in 3 days, Chief. He's like, okay. And he's just this like brace under pressure, this calm under pressure. He's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. And then, his mentorship of Nog really pays off here, where Nog applies the skills he's learned in Starfleet through learning from people like O'Brien. Plus he combines it with, a skill that O'Brien wouldn't necessarily be able to deploy or think about in the same way, with leveraging relationships and the skill of trading and all this stuff. It's like O'Brien's like learning a new trick, right? This old dog can learn a new trick, even though he is the master of his art, right? He's the master engineer. He's the guy who's keeping DS9 and the starships there, doing what they need to do to keep the Dominion back. And there are just so many good character moments between him and Nog, his like exasperation when the desk is missing, just so many delightful little moments that you really only get from DS9 in this era of Star Trek. And at the end, I love that he's seen Nog pull off this feat, and they're like getting in the turbo lift, and he turns to Nog and he asks this question. He's like, so Captain such and such, he likes this, you say? Like you can tell he's like learned that this is a new skill that he can now deploy to be better at what he's doing. Right? He's always learning. He's always growing.
That's a great reference. I was going to say, did his mentorship of Nog pay off, or is this another O'Brien Must Suffer episode? I don't know. it all comes together at the end, but then so do most of the Suffer episodes. We're not going to count it, but it's kind of in the gray area of O'Brien Must Suffer. I love this pick. I did not think of this one. I'm pretty sure it's on my Nog top 5 list. It's just an all-time great episode of Deep Space Nine. One of the most popular picks on TrekRanks. It gets picked a lot. And yeah, it's a great, everything you said there it's a great way to look at O'Brien in this and how he's operating. in kind of a different way, not really from the front, but more from the scramble that as an engineer. I love it. Chris, what's your take?
Well, this is a good pick, William, and it wasn't one that I would have considered either, but it's just an amazing moment. And in some ways, it's like the relationship between O'Brien and Nog has flipped, but also O'Brien's expectations have flipped because he's usually the one with the answers and he knows what he has to do. But this time, his normal method of operations does not apply. So now he has to rely on someone else to get the job done. And he was a little nervous about it. He didn't know where this was going to go, but it all came together in the end. And now he has something else to take with him in his toolbox, as well as his relationship with Nog. So excellent pick.
So good. Incredible. All right. It's incredible. We're through 9 picks. We're about to hit our 9th pick. And we have no duplicates yet.
Oh,
so here is my round 3. I can't believe there's no duplicates. 5 words and a hashtag. Greatest adventure of them all. Hashtag Tinker, Marriage, Soldier, Spy. And this is also from season 2, Deep Space Nine, Armageddon Game. And so this is my O'Brien Bashir kind of buddy cop episode. It's just, I love their relationship here. And this is the one where it really, for the first time, they're coming together as friends for the first time, kind of figuring each other out, or that's for sure Bashir kind of O'Brien figuring out Bashir. So again, underrated episode. And here we go. I'm going to break down my thing again. So we have all these brilliant soldier spy moments when O'Brien stops when they're on the run. He stops Bashir from opening a case of rations that could possibly be booby trapped because of his experience. And he also makes the call for them not to keep running and instead stay in place, because he thinks that'll be easier for them to be found. And then family friend, he's really good stuff here with him and Keiko, who, we are lovers and defenders of Keiko on TrekRanks. He's discussing his love for Keiko when they have this kind of sparring match back and forth where Bashir was looking forward to going to the party and trying to hook up, and kind of says, you didn't really have any angles there because you're married. And he's telling Bashir how great his marriage is. It's the greatest adventure of them all, he says. So
you were wrong, about marriage.
Whatever you say, Chief.
Listen to me, Julian. You're the one who's always talking about adventure. Huh? Adventure. Oh, marriage is the greatest adventure of them all. It's filled with pitfalls and setbacks and mistakes. But it's a journey worth taking, because you take it together. I know Keiko's been unhappy about us coming to the station. We still argue about it, but that's all right. Because at the end of the day, we both know we love each other.
Chief.
And that's all that matters.
Chief, you better get some rest.
Love that moment. And then as an engineer tinkerer, of course, he destroys the harvesters, and he's obviously he didn't trip that booby trap computer virus that Talani and that the Talani and Kelleran faked their deaths with. So just another classic, a lot of O'Brien smart stuff in this, where he's working on the comm relay to try to get them out of their predicament. I love this one. And this is definitely O'Brien must suffer since he gets the harvester disease. So, Chris, what's your take on Armageddon Game?
Well, this one is, I was thinking about this during the moment when you were describing Hippocratic Oath, because if you put these 2 episodes together, you get a very interesting picture of the O'Brien-Bashir relationship.
Yes.
And how it evolved from season 2 up to that moment in season 4. And just how both characters react and interact to each other. But because O'Brien's life is in danger here, hence like you said, he's suffering, how that relationship really begins to deepen as Bashir tries to keep his best to keep him alive. And very good pick. This is one I almost put on my secondary systems, but I figured someone might pick it, so I left it off. So very good pick.
This is on my secondary systems for sure. I think this is a top friendship episode for Bashir and O'Brien. Like you said, it's like the beginning of them falling out. And I think like what's just so great about this is, and I think what it shows a lot about relationships is, you know, how vulnerability and how like these moments where you're having, you know, where you're in crisis, like it can be a real moment to bring people together. And that's what happens with these two characters who have kind of been at each other. Brian's been really irritated, and it's the beginning of this just, you know, beautiful friendship. So no, this is an awesome pick.
Yep, perfect. All right, let's go to round 2. Chris, what do you got?
So for round 2, 5 words are Miles O'Brien, is that you? And the hashtag is curveball. And my pick is the episode Whispers from season 2 of DS9.
Wow. Oh man, so good.
Yeah, and this one was as we were talking earlier about how DS9 has so many genres running through it. This one was clearly a whodunit episode, but the curveball was in the end for it wasn't the O'Brien you thought it was.
Right.
With it being a great use of, and it's a clone story, but it really succeeded where so many other stories like that could have fallen flat in an instant. And everything was good about this one, from the framing of the episode at the very beginning, where O'Brien is in the runabout coming through the wormhole, and he basically decides to keep a log of the events that brought him to that place.
Coffee, Jamaican blend, double strong, double sweet. Time to Parada system, computer.
1 minute, 20 seconds.
How much lead time do we have in the Mekong?
At current speed, 7 minutes, 4 seconds.
It'll disappear in a hurry once we drop out of warp. At least I get to choose where they catch up. Computer, identify the largest planet in the Parada system.
Parada 4.
Adjust course to approach Parada 4.
Confirmed.
How many moons around Parada 4?
7.
Lucky 7. Display coordinates.
Approaching the Parada system.
Drop to impulse.
Everything seemed normal at first, but then certain things started happening around O'Brien, and he didn't know what was happening specifically. So the audience is left to figure out what's going on along with him at various moments, and how his friends and colleagues basically end up turning on him. And you're like, well, what the heck is going on here? Only to be revealed at the end that this was not Miles O'Brien. It was a clone of Miles O'Brien who had all of his memories, all of his feelings toward his wife, his family, his colleagues. But it wasn't O'Brien at all. So the fact that we had to see all of this through the eyes of a clone of O'Brien and understand that this was not the O'Brien we were following at all, our O'Brien. But it also showed the extent that O'Brien's drive and resourcefulness to do the right thing had even filtered down into the clone, where he felt like he had to return to that world and do something. And all credit to Colin Meaney for playing the clone as a true duplicate, because I mean, for all practical purposes, he was O'Brien until the last few moments. And then we realized, okay.
Yeah, this is such a mind-bending episode. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, what just happened? I'm so confused. And even, you know, when you rewatch it, it's one of those ones where you have to kind of catch yourself and kind of reset and think about what is happening. What is the story here? It's really clever original episode. William.
This is a great pick. I just generally speaking, Star Trek doesn't, I feel like, do a ton with cloning, and like the ethics around it. So fascinating, like just generally like an interesting episode, an interesting pick for the franchise. It like what a cool episode to see the world through this clone's perspective. You know, see how they feel about everyone around them. Certainly, like O'Brien's resourcefulness, his ability to do what he needs to do in different situations, and that like last moment where he, you know, the Keiko, like, tell her I love, you know, and the replicant dies, like,
so creepy.
Like that pull. Yeah, it's creepy, but like it pulls on the heartstrings, and it's like, dang, like this person this clone felt those things, and those feelings were real. And they were O'Brien's feelings. So
which is
that's
why,
an awesome pick.
And that's what I meant by creepy, not just like, it's just so well done. Anyway, love it. Great deep cut, man. Okay, William, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, I'm a little sad about what I'm about to do here, but my 5 words are: it's not you I hate. Hashtag I hate what I became because of you. And it's TNG season 4, episode 12, The Wounded.
I love it. All right, so why did you pick The Wounded?
I mean, a lot of the same reasons that Chris talked about earlier. For me, this is O'Brien, the veteran, and, you know, shows his deep background. Obviously, we get a ton on him. We learn so much about him and things that are important and carry through all the way through the end of Deep Space Nine. It's a great setup for all of those things. I do think it's crazy this comes right after Data's Day. I was like, dang, like, wow, they really felt like they could trust Colm Meaney, obviously with great reason, and it paid off for them. You know, I love what this episode says about like growth and how people can change and people can move past things, and I think O'Brien is like a great episode of that. You can tell he's like still kind of struggling with the war. There's like a little bit of cognitive dissonance where he's like, I feel fine about Cardassians, but then he kind of blows up at the guy in the elevator. But he takes time and he comes back around to realize this is how I'm feeling. And I'm not the angry man who Maxwell is. Like I'm more aware of what's going on. I'm more aware of my feelings, what that means.
I was with a group of women and children when 2 Cardassian soldiers burst in. I stunned one of them. The other one jumped me. We struggled. One of the women threw me a phaser, and I fired. The phaser was set at maximum. The man just incinerated there before my eyes. I'd never killed anything before. When I was a kid, I'd worry about swatting a mosquito. It's not you I hate, Cardassian. I hate what I became because of you.
I think there are also some really excellent, fun little moments with him and Keiko.
Yeah.
The like breakfast back and forth. I love those little like marriage moments where she's like, she gives him the breakfast that she grew up with, and he's like, I'm not a fish. And then he makes potato casserole, quote, a dish fit for kings. That feels like a matter of perspective, but I love it. And I love that back and forth that they have and those little moments.
I love when she's just like, it's a little heavy. Sounds like all right, well, let's just do this now. I have chosen this episode 5 times previously, including as one of my top 5 Captain Picard episodes. So here we go again. 5 words and a hashtag. What I became because of you. Hashtag Tinker, Stompy, Soldier, Spy. And this is, of course, The Wounded. So we have a triplicate, which I kind of figured. How is The Wounded?
This
not
had to
gonna,
get picked by everyone.
Has to get picked. So good. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly add that. So Jerry Taylor wrote this script, and she did something amazing with this script and the story in the same way where, we were talking about how this just, it showcases Colm Meaney and Miles O'Brien as a character that you can build all these stories around. It's just incredible. So they introduced the Cardassians in this episode. You got the O'Brien and Keiko home life, O'Brien as a soldier, O'Brien as the tinker engineer. You mentioned it, Chris, where he's the one that figures out how he can beam over to the Rutledge and meet with Maxwell. You have his PTSD with him in denial about hating the the Cardi bastards, Stompy, O'Brien, the tactical officer in his past career, which I just love. So just a legendary all-time episode. Fantastic stuff. Chris, any final thoughts on the Wounded before we go into round one?
I'll just add that the breakfast scene between O'Brien and Keiko was just wonderful. And again, it's not a scene that we had really seen in Star Trek before of domestic life, but it was just so beautiful. And the back and forth about what they consider to be an ideal breakfast was just great.
I do like to joke that there's no way Keiko didn't know what capers were. I mean, come on. Keiko has to know what capers are. I mean, okay. Yeah. All right, let's go to round one.
Begin round one.
Here we go. Chris, what's your number one episode?
Okay, so my 5 words are the O'Brien must suffer archetype, hashtag the pain that lingers, and my pick is Hard Time.
Oh, you did pick it. Oh, so good. So good.
Yes. This was one episode that I just could not get away from when I was considering my list for this episode, and I just kept coming back to Hard Time as the number one pick. And this episode just really has it all, in addition to a powerhouse performance from Colin Meaney of the extent that this experience that O'Brien had for a few hours of our time, but 20 years in his mind, just really had an effect on his life, and I mean his overall life, just in terms of his relationships, his work, his family. Everything was viewed through a different lens because of what he had experienced. And when he returned to DS9, he just had a moment where he thought that he could just go back and return to his normal life, but there was just the situation that he had been through had just had such an impact on him. And it was an episode that dealt with the trauma of both imprisonment and post-traumatic stress in a way that we really had not seen in Deep Space Nine to that extent up to that point, as well as a lot of Star Trek. It was just, he really focused on that negativity and the fact that O'Brien's suffering in this case really did have an impact on the person he was when he returned to the station. But in the end, he didn't sacrifice his humanity because he felt remorse for the killing of his neighbor, and his name is, I'm having another brain fart.
HR.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
When HR died at his hands, he really felt something for that, even though, as we knew, it never existed, but it just shows the depth of O'Brien's empathy and how he does feel about the people who he comes in contact with. It just makes such an impact on him. And it wasn't common in 90s era Star Trek, but it would have been interesting to have another follow-up with O'Brien on the events of this episode in the years that followed, because it was one of those things that they could have come back to periodically, just because it would have been, to say that O'Brien would have been completely over this, given what happened in this episode, would have been close to impossible. But there was just so much that we could have checked in on periodically to see where he was, how he was handling this, because it was just such a crucial moment in his overall story.
Yeah, for sure. This one, I mean, I'm so glad you picked this, because I definitely had it on my list for a while. I finally ended up on my secondary systems, just because it's such a hard watch. It's a tough one. It's really, really difficult to sit down and enjoy this episode, quote unquote. Amazing performance from Colin Meaney. I think they really do a good job, especially like you mentioned, Chris, with 90s era Trek. Like, this one's got a lot of weight, and it feels like it's a part of O'Brien now moving forward, even though we don't really see it. But they did such a good job of kind of making that impact, and not just being kind of that love of the week that you never hear from again, or in kind of the way storytelling was at that time. So yeah, I love it. It's such a great episode. HR is amazing. amazing character, and the whole structure of this one is really well done. William, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my 5 words are it's real to me, Major. # O'Brien must suffer and survive. Because my number 1 pick is also Hard Time.
Oh, there we go.
So
awesome.
No, I think this is a great pick, and this is the quintessential O'Brien must suffer episode. I hadn't seen this episode in a long time, and this episode just hits. Chris,
hits so well.
I agree with everything that you were saying, Chris, about this is O'Brien suffering from trauma. He's recovering, he has PTSD. He's angry. He's trying to go through his life, but it's something that that impacts every part of his life. I agree with all of that. And you can kind of tell that he's been through this before, but he's still resistant to recovery at first. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I love about this, Chris, I also love that you brought up, how rare this was for a 90s Star Trek show to tackle this kind of thing. But O'Brien's our if he's our everyman stand-in, if we're thinking the late 20th century US based show, our archetype isn't going to be someone who goes to therapy, right, and confronts their emotions and takes care of themselves. And I really like that they used O'Brien to show how important it is to work on yourself, and how important it is to not just give into anger. I think men can sometimes do that. I mean, that's a generalization, but this they're kind of breaking down this archetype and saying you have to kind of confront this. You have to move through this. And O'Brien is just the perfect character to do that. You see him get angry. You see him being forced to dig deeper, to push through what's going on. And ultimately it's about forgiveness and vulnerability. And to me, this is this is O'Brien, the survivor, the one who can find a place, who does what needs to be done to live and make himself the best that he can be day in, day out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect summary. You guys nailed it. This episode it's a popular episode. People love this one. And you said it, Chris, it's kind of the quintessential O'Brien must suffer archetype. So classic Deep Space Nine.
We did so well with no repeats for so long.
Yeah, well, we knew there was going to be a couple of these, and there's about to be another. I was going to maybe pull an audible and move something into my number 1, but I'm not going to do it because I just love this episode so much. So it's the 3rd time it's been my number 1 episode on TrekRanks for different categories, which is actually a lot. 5 words in a hashtag. Yeah, let's do 5 words in a hashtag. Undercover setting is quintessential O'Brien # Tinker, Syndicate, Soldier, Spy, and it's Honor Among Thieves, Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 15. I love it. And again, you have everything: engineer, tinkerer, the soldier, spy, the friendship. He uses all of those elements in this episode so well, and I just it's a special examination of O'Brien's life and how he approaches his work and his expertise in the field and his humanity as a person, how he connects with people, the way he connects with Bilby and goes back to try to help him. I love it so much. I said it before, I could watch it a million times. So one of my all-time favorites. Any final words on Honor Among Thieves before we go into secondary systems?
The only thing I'll say is I need to rewatch this episode tonight.
Yes. All right. Everybody should rewatch Honor Among Thieves.
For sure.
And Love on Chester at the end. We love it. Okay. All right. Secondary systems. Let's do it.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Chris, run through a few on your list.
Okay. I'll run through these really quickly. Marrying Keiko from Data's Day. Respecting Troy's rank in disaster. Lying to Captain Kirk in Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah.
His comment about Farpoint Station and the counter Farpoint.
So good.
Model ships exchange with Picard and Booby Trap, stopping Garrick but humanely in Impact Nor, coaching the Niners, Take Me Out to the Hall Suite, and of course, the most important man in Starfleet history from Temporal Edict.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
what a great list. I love it. William, how about you?
Data's Day, absolutely.
Yeah.
His marriage, being a family man, losing Travers from the Alamo. It's not a toy for his relationship with,
of course,
with Bashir.
So good.
Smashing down the mugs in Homefront after they've taken on the Jerrys.
Yep.
Worf's bachelor party from You're Cordially Invited. The Way of the Warrior and his friendship with Worf and reflecting on the time with the Enterprise. Best of Both Worlds 2, stand-in for LeVar Burton. Explorers, singing Jerusalem. Extreme Measures, going into Sloane's mind with his best friend. And then Visionary and Armageddon game.
So good. I love this. And I love that you guys are rattling them off quick with like the moments and all the, because there's so many great O'Brien moments, right, that are beyond how many great episodes there are. So, okay, my toughest cut was Empok Nor. I couldn't quite get the family friend level of my Prime Directive into it because he was just soldier, spy, and engineer tinkerer. So I had 5 words and a hashtag. Sometimes soldiers have to kill. Hashtag tinker, Kotra, soldier, spy. And then I'm going to rattle off. I had everything we mentioned here: hard time, visionary. No one's mentioned tribunal yet, which is a big one. That's a big O'Brien must suffer episode. I have the circle from beginning of Deep Space Nine season 2 because I love the moment where he's in the runabout and Kira's like, "Hey, there's only 2 ways this mission's going to end. We either bring back Willie Nullis or we die trying." And he's like, "Understood. Let's go."
Yeah.
He's the best. I love O'Brien. And then I'm going to call out, I love in Children of Time. This is where he's being super pragmatic. He's like, "No, we're going back. I got a family. And sorry about you 800 people that are going to die," until they're out in the field and the little girl says, he's like, she said, "You're not going to help?" He's like, "I'm busy." "You don't look busy." And Cisco just laughs in the background. She's an O'Brien, all right. I love that moment. And then my special shout out. This is the episode I almost moved into my number 1 slot, is To the Death. There's 2 amazing Miles O'Brien's moments here. And my 5 words and hashtag for To the Death: intend to stay that way. Hashtag tinker, letter, soldier, spy. And first it's, I am Chief Miles Edward O'Brien. I'm very much alive and I intend to stay that way. His response to the Jem'Hadar.
Such a delightful people.
I am Chief Miles Edward O'Brien. I'm very much alive and I intend to stay that way.
I'm in. Let's get it done.
And then there's this awesome moment where him and Dax are talking about recording their messages to their loved ones when they go into battle in case they die. And Dax just says, "You know what? I've lived 8 lifetimes. You develop certain instincts, and my instincts tell me that you, Miles Edward O'Brien, are going to live to be 140 and die in bed surrounded by family and friends." And I just love that thought, that's how Miles Edward O'Brien is going to go out. And he responds like, "Do you really believe that?" She's like, "Do you?" And he says, "I'd like to." So just an awesome O'Brien moment.
Every time I record one of these, I think, this is it. This is the one they're going to end up hearing.
It'll never happen.
What makes you say that?
Because when you've lived 8 lifetimes, you develop certain instincts. And my instincts tell me that you, Miles Edward O'Brien, are going to live to be 140 and die in bed, surrounded by family and friends.
Do you really believe that?
Do you?
I'd like to.
That's all that matters.
So much we can talk about here. Love me some Chief Smiley, but now it's time to get into our regeneration cycle. We're going to recap our picks and go through some cool stats here.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Chris, run down your top 5.
Okay, so number 5 was The Assignment from DS9. Number 4 was Visionary, also from DS9. Number 3 was The Wounded from TNG. Number 4 is Whispers from DS9. And number 1 I'm sorry, number 2 was Whispers from DS9, and number 1 is Hard Time from DS9. All time, O'Brien Must Suffer.
I learned a lot about you on this episode, Chris. So you had 4 O'Brien Must Suffer episodes picked. Wow. Wow, dude. Oh, man.
I try not to, but
I love that.
Okay.
Had to happen.
William, break down your 5.
Yeah, my number 5 pick is Hippocratic Oath from Deep Space Nine. That's O'Brien the Friend. My number 4 pick is Honor Among Thieves from Deep Space Nine, O'Brien the Family Man. Number 3 is Treachery, Faith, and the Great River from DS9, O'Brien the Master Engineer.
So good.
My number 2 pick is The Wounded from The Next Generation, O'Brien the Veteran. And my number 1 pick, Hard Time from Deep Space Nine, O'Brien the Survivor.
Incredible. So you had 1 O'Brien Must Suffer, and we'll give an asterisk to Treachery, Faith, and the Great River.
Yeah.
Okay, my 5 picks. Number 5, Captive Pursuit from the first season of Deep Space Nine. Number 4, Paradise from the second season. And number 3, Armageddon Game, also from the second season of Deep Space Nine. And then I had number 2, The Wounded from TNG. And of course, Honor Among Thieves is my number 1. So I had 1 O'Brien Must Suffer episode as well. So a couple of stats here. We had, as you might expect, we had 12 from Deep Space Nine and 3 from TNG, with the Wounded getting that triplicate. We had 1 triplicate.
Trifecta.
Yep, and then we had 2 duplicates with Honor Among Thieves and Hard Time. And then in terms of alternate timelines, we didn't have any mirror picks, but I'm going to say we had 2 alternate picks, and they were both yours, Chris, with Visionaries, kind of a little bit because of and then Whispers, because that wasn't really him. It was a clone for the whole episode. And then O'Brien Must Suffer, we had 6 overall picks out of 15, which is pretty kind of us.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I love it. Chris, you had 4. Amazing. So good. All right, let's get into we're going to initiate a temporal inversion because it's time to hear from you.
Initiate temporal inversion.
Initiating.
And for this week's temporal inversion, we are going back to episode 167, our top 5 weather-related incidents. That was a fun episode. Got a cool episode from Melody Mackey, who sent us a few in the past. Her Twitter handle at Picard is my hero. And here are her 5. I love this. Number 5 was The Enemy Within, related to, of course, poor Sulu being stuck on that on the planet and not being able to use the transporter. And then number 4, she had The Enemy. So to tie into The Enemy Within, and that's LaForge working with the Romulans because he, in terms of trying to help with the visor on, I guess that was Galorndon Core, right? Yeah, I think so. And then she had Necessary Evil, the opening great noir scene with the rain. Number 2, she had Scorpion Part 1 because Janeway has an epiphany to team up with Starfleet's deadliest enemy and runs into a storm of trouble in the process. Clever. And then her number 1, I love this, Strange New World from Enterprise Season 1 with that storm hitting that planet. Really cool episode where they go into the caves and they start seeing people that aren't there. So awesome list from Melody. We love it. So once again, those picks more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal inversion. So as always, I want to thank everyone again for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Miles O'Brien episodes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527 at 609-512-LLAP, or you can just record it and then send me a DM and we can hook up that way too. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing a really, really cool one. It's the top 5 ensemble episodes. So basically the exact opposite of everything we talked about today. So these are those episodes that really took advantage of the show's entire cast and really had them all involved in one way or another. Going to be a cool topic, top 5 ensemble episodes. So Chris and William, if you had to think of an ensemble episode off the top of your head, what would it be? Chris, what do you got?
One that comes to mind is "Take Me Out to the Hall Suite" from DS9.
That's the quintessential one. It's gonna be hard to keep that one off everybody's list because it's truly the best. Maybe we'll make that one out of bounds. William, how about you? What do you got?
I was gonna say "Bada Bing, Bada Bang" from DS9.
That was number 2.
Actually, it's both of those. So we have to scratch both of those off the list because they are the classic Deep Space Nine ensemble moments. So good. That's gonna be a fun episode to think about in different ways. So,
channel closed. Reset. Subspace communications. Scrambler code Riker 1.
Okay, Scrambler code Riker 1 acknowledged. We're gonna close this episode out with a huge thanks to Chris Burris and William Overton. It was awesome having you guys on the show. Great job breaking down Miles O'Brien. Any final Trek Scrambler codes either one of you want to relay before we depart? Chris.
Well, it was great to be back and to not have to deal with self-stealing stem bolts when talking about Miles O'Brien.
Oh my God, we didn't even bring them up. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm glad you did right here at the end.
I had to work them in somehow, but thanks, Jim.
Perfect, man. Thanks for coming back, Chris. William, thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys. This was wonderful. O'Brien might have suffered, but we definitely didn't, and I hope the listeners don't either. So thanks for having me on.
No one is suffering listening to any conversation about the great Chief Miles Edward O'Brien. And finally, I want to thank everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 173 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Status report you asked for, sir. The repairs are finished. The Defiant's ready to leave orbit.
Aren't you gonna help?
I'm busy.
You don't look busy.
She's an O'Brien, all right. Better get to it, Chief.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Keiko only spends a few days at a time on the station. I'm the one living in those quarters. And if I want to set up a little workshop in the bedroom...
You set up a workshop in the bedroom?
Yeah. Well, I don't use it when she's visiting.
Oh, of course not.
She says I'm trying to live like a bachelor again. That I'm expressing a subconscious desire to push her out of our quarters.
Now, that is ridiculous.
Well, that's what I said.
I mean, if anything, by spending your free time in the bedroom, a place you intimately associate with Keiko, you are actually expressing a desire to be closer to her during her absence. It's quite touching, really.
Exactly. See, you understand. Now, why can't she see that? Why can't she be more like...
More like?
Well, a man. More like a man.
So, you wish Keiko was a man?
I wish I was on this trip with someone else. That's what I wish.